this video, I will be demonstrating how to paper piece the Modern Mountains quilt block. As you see here, this is available in my shop on my website, bayhillstudio.com. And the pattern comes with 6 different block sizes. The first is this large 12.5-inch block. And throughout the year, I will be making more 12.5-inch blocks that I will eventually put into a quilt, which you can do as well. It also comes in a 9.5-inch size and a 6.5-inch size. This is the unfinished size. So the finished size would be a 1/2 inch smaller. This finished would be 12-inch, and then the others would be 9 and 6-inch finished. It also comes with these rectangle blocks, same exact construction, but just a rectangular shape. And they're perfect for making the covers of a zipper pouch. And I will be showing how to do that today. So the 3 sizes for the rectangle blocks are 8.5 by 12.5 inches, 7 inches by 9.5 inches, and 5 by 7.5 inches. I will also be demonstrating how to make the zipper tab and how to create this optional boxed bottom that I've done here on the larger pouch. So let's get started. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our printed template and we're just going to cut out each individual section. You can cut loosely around the edges. You don't need to cut right on that dotted line. In fact, I prefer not to. We'll trim to that dotted line later on and just cut them each out. Now, I am using regular standard printer paper for mine. I like to use printer paper in my demonstrations because I want you to see that this is perfectly fine. There is paper sold specifically for paper piecing on the market, and you can definitely use that. A lot of people love to use it, but I just want to show that printer paper works perfectly fine. So let's get started on the first section, and we'll set the other sections aside for now. So I'm using solid fabric, and so it doesn't matter if the right or wrong side is facing the back. If you're using a printed fabric, you want wrong side to wrong side. So the wrong side of the paper faces the wrong side of the fabric. Since I am using solid, it doesn't matter. And I'm just going to pin that into place. So you're pinning the fabric to the back of your paper. And I want the fabric to be larger than this. So I'm doing the Red Mountain, which is the A1 section. And this is a beautiful persimmon colored fabric, confetti cotton from Riley Blake Designs. And I want it to be larger than this little area. That's all I need. I don't need it to fit exactly. It just needs to be larger. I'm going to pin it into place, and then we're going to attach it to this little snowy peak, the A2 section. So we fold on this line between A1 and A2, and then we're going to trim. Okay, so to trim this, I am going to put my ruler right up against the seam. Now here I am using a ruler called Add a Quarter Plus. This is the larger Add a Quarter ruler. It's 12 inches long, and it has this little lip right here that meets right up against that fold. So this is designed specifically for paper piecing and gives you a perfect 1/4 inch seam allowance, which is so handy. If you've seen my last video that I made with the Our Lady zipper pouch, I used a regular quilting ruler, and that's just fine too, as long as you get your 1/4 inch seam allowance. And we want the 1/4 inch seam allowance seam just to reduce bulk. You could leave it larger. It would just get really messy on the back, especially when you're piecing tiny sections together. So it's just nice to have that 1/4 inch there for you. So I cut that, and now we're going to add the snowy peak. And so all we do is put it right sides together. So if this was a printed fabric, you would put your right side with your right side, and then just line it up with that 1/4 inch edge. And then I'm going to open it up, and on this black line that we have where we folded, that's where we're going to stitch. And we want to stitch out a little bit past the black line, and then if you'll see right here, this is your seam allowance. This is your 1/4 inch seam allowance. And so when we're finished with this section, we are going to trim along this dotted line. So we want this to be stitched all the way through. We don't want unstitched fabric in that seam allowance. So we're going to come and stitch past that dotted line. So a little bit past each end, and you're going to do that all the way through, and then you'll see how that comes together. I suggest just going for it. Just start paper piecing so that you can really see hands-on how this works. It's easier than trying to visualize it. I've watched so many tutorials in the past, and I didn't really understand it till I started doing it. So let's stitch along that dark line. Oh, and I need to adjust my stitch length. We want it to be a really tight stitch length. I've set mine to 1. And the reason why is we want to perforate the paper so that after we're done, we can tear away. It'll be like a perforated little dots that we can easily just tear away when we're done. Okay, so now you can see I stitched along that line, went a little bit over each side, which is what we want to do. Now I can remove that pin, and we just fold it open, and we're going to press that open. And you're going to press every time you do this. Okay, and then we have one more section that we're doing, and it's this A3 section. And if you're a newbie, you might be worried, well, we stitched into that section. What do we do? It's okay. Just pull the paper away, and we're going to fold on the line between the A1 and A2 that we stitched and A3. And so you might just have to pull that paper away where you stitched just a tiny bit to fold, and we'll give that a trim right on that fold. Now you can see I have a lot of this off-white color left. I'm going to keep using that throughout, so I just set that aside. And since I have so much left, it's just going to be easier for me if I just trim some away. Easier to handle. Now I want that blue color for the cloud, for the sky. So here we go. And the trick, this is a really big piece, so I'm not going to worry about it, but the trick is that you, again, want to, when it unfolds, so let's pretend it's unfolded now, it's stitched, we want it to be larger than our section that we're working with. So I'm just going to line it up, and look, that's not going to be perfect. That's totally fine. That does not matter. And again, I'm going to stitch past that dotted line and past that dotted line. All right, so let's fold that open and press. Okay, I'm going to take this to my cutting mat, and I'm going to trim all around the dotted lines, and I'll bring it back and show you, and then we'll start on our next section. Our section A is finished, and you'll see here I trimmed around the dotted lines, and we ended up with this section. So now I'm going to set that aside, and we'll start on section B. So B has the little brown mountain, and again, these colors are representative. You can change out the colors to be whatever you want, but I find it's easier when I have some kind of color just in my mind to represent that little piece. So I know, oh, this is sky, this is snow. It represents what it is for me, and I find that to be really helpful. So again, I'm pinning it into place. And just a reminder, if you're using printed fabric, you're going to pin wrong side of fabric to wrong side of paper. Now I'm going to fold between the B1 and B2 right on that solid line. And yes, it's going to go through all these other areas, and that's okay. So I'm folding, and then I'm going to line my ruler up right there and trim. Next step is I'm going to line it up with the, this is Cloud Confetti cotton. It's a slightly off-white. It's a really soft white. And again, if you are using printed fabric instead of solids, you would put right side of fabric to right side of fabric. I'm just going to line it up on this edge. And again, this isn't a perfectly straight edge, you can see, and that's totally fine. And then I open out my paper. And again, I'm going to stitch out a little ways past the end of that section on a tight stitch. All right, I can take out my pin, and we open and press. All right, so that's what it looks like. It's not pretty, but it's coming together. Now I've sewn B1 and B2 together. I'm moving to B3. Again, we stitched through it. That's okay. We just kind of pull the paper away and fold on this line, the B3 line that divides the B1 and 2 sections between B1 and B2 and B3. So right there. And then I'm going to give it a trim right there, 1/4 inch. So next I have that, again, the Cloud Confetti cotton. So I'm going to line it up, open it up, and stitch a little bit beyond each end of the line. Okay, so we can open that up and press. All right, so we did B1, B2, B3, and now we're going to do B4, which is the sky. And I'm just going to kind of gently tear away and fold on this line. There we go. And then we trim. All right, so we've got sky. Let's grab this piece and see. Yep, that will work. That will cover the area. So I'm going to line it up, open, and you can see this, you've got a 1/4 inch here, and that's where you're stitching on this line, and you're going to be left with this 1/4 inch seam. So it works out perfectly. And don't forget, we're going to stitch beyond that dotted line and a little bit beyond this line. Okay, so let's open that up and press, and you can see it's coming together. It's starting to look like something. All right, and all that's left to do now is B5. So I'm going to carefully, it's stitched into a couple sections here, so carefully open that up, fold on the line, trim, and again, I like to save all these little pieces because I know I'm going to be using this color a lot throughout this project. In fact, this little piece looks like it'll work great right there. So I'm just going to line that up and stitch. All right, Open it and press. All right, I will take this to the cutting mat and I will trim around the dotted line and bring it back, and we'll start on the next section. All right, we finished section B. This is what it looks like. Let's put it next to section A. Look at that, coming together. So again, I took it to my cutting mat and I trimmed right around those dotted lines. This is why we sew past up until the edge, because you don't want this to be unstitched, this little area. So it holds it together so you have one complete section. And let's move to the section C. And for this I used this honey colored confetti cotton, and I'm just going to arrange it so that it's larger than this yellow area. Pin it in place, fold between C1 and C2, and this is your easiest one because it's actually not. This is the second easiest one because this is just 2 pieces. So really simple. Oh, and then we're going to trim just on the fold there. All right, we've got our cloud confetti cotton to create our snowy peaks. Again, this is a really rough edge. It doesn't matter if it's not perfectly straight. And then I'm going to stitch open and press. We're going to take that and trim, and then also our easiest one is this, because there is no piecing with this. This is just a section of sky that needed to be its own little piece. And for this, I'm just going to pin it in place and trim around the dotted line. So I'm going to take sections C and D and go trim around the edges, and then we can assemble the front of the zipper pouch. Okay, my sections are all trimmed and it's time to put them together. Here you can see how they come together, and if we want to flip them over, they're always printed on a mirror image, so they will look different. Let's see if I can get that. There you go. That is how they look flipped over. So what we're going to do is we're going to sew together the A and B section first here, then we'll add section C, and then we'll add the final section. Again, I like to keep the paper on. The great thing about sewing is you can figure out what works for you. If you want to take the paper off first and do that, you certainly can. And I stitch along that solid line. That gives us our 1/4 inch seam. Again, out to the edge, completely out to the edge. You're not going to start at the corner of the solid line. You're going to stitch all the way out to the dotted line. All right, so we pull it open like this, and then I just open up the seams and kind of use my fingernails to press them open. And then I will take it to the iron for one more press. I find every project looks better if I thoroughly press as I go. Okay, so now we're going to add section C. Just like that. So when you open it up, you'll have your 3 mountain peaks. Look at that. So we open it up and we open up the seams. You want the seams pressed open to reduce bulk. It will get far too bulky if you press them to one side. All right, let's give it a press with the iron. And finally, we will add the sky. So I just kind of line it up the best I can. Okay, so I'm going to press this open, our final seam. And it's funny, even as I'm pressing it open with my fingernails, some of the paper is just deciding to fall away. That's great. Like that. Now I'm going to peel away all of the paper. As you can see, it's fallen away already. And I just gently start at one side and gently just pull away a little bit. You don't want to rip your thread, so you do need to be a little bit gentle with it and just start taking it off piece by piece. Now that the paper is all off, I'm going to starch and press this. I like to starch it because it's easier to work with. You do not have to do that. For me, it just gives it some stability. It's easier to work with. Then I'm going to take it to the cutting mat and trim it so that it is 7 by 9.5 inches. It's typically about 1/4 to 1/2 inch larger, so you can just trim around the edges to get your rectangle 7 by 9.5 inches. And then we will start on assembling our zipper pouch. I have my zipper pouch cover trimmed. Again, this pattern comes in 3 different sizes. So this one is the medium size, which is 7 by 9.5 inch. Whatever size pattern you have, that's what you want to trim it to. And now we are going to start assembling the zipper pouch. The first thing we do is we are going to use this fusible fleece. And you can see close up, this side has some little dots, little bumps on it. That's the glue. And I'm going to glue it, the glue side to the wrong side of my block, and press. And I'm using fusible fleece on this instead of batting, quilt batting, because I don't want to quilt all over my paper piecing. If you want to quilt all over it, you can for sure use quilt batting and then assemble it the same going forward. I am instead opting for fusible fleece to keep this kind of clean and modern looking. So whatever aesthetic you're going for, go for it. So just take a moment to press. And this is a really hot dry iron. It's a vintage iron that gets unusually hot. In fact, I cannot use it at the hottest setting because it will burn a hole through the fabric. Now I'm going to, this is the back of my bag, and I'm going to also fuse a piece of fusible fleece to the back. So I'm going to set the back aside and we'll start with the front, and we will start by making our zipper tabs. So for the zipper tabs, these are 2 strips of 4 inch by 1.5 inches of fabric. You can see on this one, I pressed it in half, and then I pressed about 1/4 inch from each side. It doesn't have to be exact, I never measure, so that it will fold like this and you will not have raw edges. It just, by pressing those 1/4 inches under, you're letting the raw edges be enclosed. I'm going to press that one more time. And then we will do the second zipper tab. So I pressed it in half already, and now I'm going to get those raw edges under about 1/4 inch. Like so. All right, so to start, let's just make these zipper tabs. So I like to use a zipper that is the same length as the long edge of my zipper pouch or longer. So this is a little bit longer, and that's great. And then as you assemble it, you're going to begin by having the zipper face down, but for right now I'm going to have it up and show you how to make the zipper tabs. Zipper tabs are optional, but I like them because they give a really neat appearance and they help the zipper not to get caught in the corner when you open and close. So to begin, I just cut off the little stopper right there. And I'm using a polyester zipper, so it easily cuts through. If you're using a metal zipper, just be very careful as you're cutting. You have to just do it carefully. Now, when I enclose the zipper, I'm going to enclose it in this tab that I created. I don't want to bring it way down here, and the reason why is because when I sew it, and you'll see it later as we're sewing, we are going to sew a 1/4 inch seam, and that's going to get all bunched up, and that would just create a lot of bulk. It would be difficult to sew and it won't look good. So I keep it up towards the top so that when I sew my zipper pouch together, all I'm sewing is the tab and not the zipper. And I'm going to enclose it. And then I'm just going to top stitch along this edge. If you want to pin it into place to keep it steady, you can do that, or use a clip, whatever works for you. Oh, my thread came undone. Let's fix that real quick. I probably should be pinning this because it's not wanting to stay in place, but we've got it. Okay. So we are stitched in place, and then I am going to trim so that it's as straight as possible. You're never going to get it perfect, but with the zipper tape so that it's aligned. It's just easier to sew later. You do not have to do this. I'm just demonstrating that you can do that. And there you go. There's one zipper tab. Now this is how I like to do it. In my last video, I demonstrated how to do this, and I showed you a ruler, and I brought it in about 1 to 1.5 inches. For this, I'm not even going to measure. I just want you to see that you do not have to measure. Whatever looks good to you. If you want to bring it all the way flush, you can. I'm just going to go right about there. And I am going to use my clips to just clip this into place while I work on this end. So now you see I've got the zipper face down. That's how I want it. I want it facing down. All right. I am going to open the zipper, and then I'm going to mark where I want my tab to be about. Let's see. About right there. And I want to mark on both sides of my zipper tape so I know where to sew. And I'm using a black pen. Hopefully you can see that line. And I'm going to take this now, fold back the zipper pouch. I'm going to take this, hold these together, and I'm going to sew across that line just to hold it into place for me. And then I'm going to trim just past that line. I'm clipping off all that excess. So just past that line. All right, and now I'm going to enclose this with the zipper tab. And again, I don't want to bring it all the way down here. I want it up top. And I'm just going to create a little envelope here and top stitch. All right, we've got it top stitched and we are in place. So now I'm just going to trim that edge. Again, this is an optional step. You can get really comfortable with making these zipper pouches where you just don't feel like you need to trim, and that's totally fine. Whatever works. All right, so now we are going to kind of hold that tab in place and begin assembling our zipper pouch. All right, so our next step is we are going to make what I like to call a zipper sandwich. This is our outer piece of our zipper pouch, our zipper, and our lining. And the lining will be face down, and it will all make a sandwich around this side, just this side, like right here, this side of the zipper tape. That's the side we're working on. The side that is even with the edge of your zipper pouch. Again, your zipper is face down, right sides facing. So the right side of the zipper faces the right side of the zipper pouch. And to start, we are going to just stitch along as close to the zipper teeth. So this little bumpy part that connects the zipper together is called the zipper teeth. We're going to stitch as close as we can. It's helpful for a lot of people to use a zipper foot. My presser foot is so narrow that I don't need a zipper foot, but if you need a zipper foot, then use it to get as close as you can. And we're just going to stitch along, and you'll notice I'm starting out with my zipper opened. That's because if this tab was up here, it would be very difficult to sew around. And once we get to this tab, I'm actually going to move it out of the way. All right, we're up to the tab, so I lift my presser foot, and I'm just closing the zipper now and getting it out of the way, and continue stitching. Okay, so there's our zipper, beginning of our zipper sandwich, and at this point you can leave this excess tab or you can trim it. Again, whatever you feel comfortable with. If you've made 101 of these zipper pouches, you're gonna say you probably don't need to trim it, but whatever's comfortable for you. All right, now we want to finish this zipper sandwich by adding the right side of the lining to the right side of the outer piece. But as you'll notice, the zipper pull is right here at the top, and that's going to get in the way of my presser foot. So I'm going to open that, get it out of the way, and then I'm just going to line this up the best I can. Doesn't have to be perfect. And at this point, you're going to be feeling for where those zipper teeth are, and just guide your foot close to it, not over those zipper teeth. All right, I have just reached that zipper pull, so I am going to go underneath and raise my presser foot and close that zipper pull so it's out of the way. All right, so there is your zipper sandwich. And I'm going to press this open, so this is a clean, crisp line here, and I'm going to press that, and then we'll top stitch along here, and then we'll make our zipper sandwich on this side of the zipper. There we go. That is 1/2 of our zipper pouch put together. So now let's begin our zipper sandwich on this side. And we will start, and you can start with either side. I'm going to start on this side since that's what's facing me right now. I'm going to open my zipper to get that zipper pull out of the way. Actually, I might end up closing it because I always do this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to line these up, and I always find that I like to work on this side. It's just easier. It's funny, I always start on the other side and turn it over to this side. I've got it closed, and I've got the edge of my zipper tape lined up with the edge of the back of my zipper pouch. And I'm going to repeat, I'm going to sew close to that zipper tape, not over it, just close to it. Now I'm close to that zipper pull, so I will open that so it's out of the way. Okay, so the other part, the last part of our zipper sandwich, is to add the lining. So I am just going to do right side of lining to right side of lining. Line it up and stitch. And there you have it. So now I'm going to press just like I did before and then top stitch. All right, we are halfway there to creating this zipper pouch. Okay, if you want to see the traditional way to assemble a flat zipper pouch like this, check out my Our Lady zipper pouch tutorial from this point on. That's how it shows you how to do the flat version. I am going to show you how to create this boxed bottom version. And I'm going to show you one fun trick with it that helps that lining to really stay secure. A little bit different than how it's usually shown. And I just like that lining to be tight and secure. So I'm going to show you how to do that. This is the larger version, and this is they look the same size here, but once you get it boxed, it makes it seem a lot smaller. And so I'm going to show you how to put that together from here on out. So what you're going to want to do is fold it open so that first step, I always forget, is open your zipper. If you do not open your zipper, you will not be able to turn it right side out when this is all said and done. And you're going to pin or clip the right sides of your outer pieces together in just a few areas. You don't have to overly secure it. Okay, so in a typical tutorial, you're going to be told to leave the bottom open about 3 inches, and that's to create the flat version, and for many boxed versions. But for this version, I'm actually going to tell you to leave a side open about 3 inches. So we'll just draw this. You do not have to draw this, but for demonstration purposes, I'm just going to do that to show you. We're going to leave this open. And we're going to stitch all around the edge using a 1/4 seam allowance. One thing to remember is that zipper tab that we created, we are going to kind of pinch it so that it folds towards the lining. So you can see that there, it's folding towards the lining. And as I pinch it, I want to try to match up those seams. And then I'm going to clip that into place and do the same thing on the other side. Pinch it so that the zipper tab goes towards the lining, and clip that into place so you don't accidentally sew it in the wrong direction. Now I am going to begin down here in my lining. It doesn't really matter where you begin or end. I'm going to begin on this line using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. You're going to go carefully over these middle seams where your zipper tab is. Even with the zipper tab, it's a little bulky, so you just want to carefully go over that. If you had caught your zipper tape in there as well, it would be very difficult on a traditional machine to sew over it. So just go nice and slow over that little part. Okay, our next step is we are going to trim. Let me draw a line so you can see. We are going to trim close to our corner thread, but not up to the thread. We don't want to snip through the thread that we just sewed, but we're going to trim very close. This helps to just give our corners nice crisp corners. And this is habit. You don't actually need to do this for this bag, but this is habit for me. So if you're making a traditional flat bag, you for sure want to do that. But for this one, you actually don't. All right, so now we are going to create our boxed corners. And for that, I want to open up each corner like this. And I like to open up the seams. And this can get a little bit fiddly to work with, but just have some patience. Open up your seam, kind of use your fingernail to open it, and then open the other side. And you want to feel that those seams are lined up with each other, back to back. Now, for my larger zipper pouch, for this 8.5 by 12.5 inch one, I measured 1.5 inches from point up to here. So I measured it 1.5 inches. This is a smaller one, so I decided I want to just go 1 inch up. So I'm going to draw a line, just a little dot, and then I'm going to draw a line across from end to end, and that's where I'm going to stitch, right across that line. And I do like to back stitch really good here because I don't want that to break. I don't want to get sloppy with that. All right, so that's our corner. And then I am going to cut about 1/4 inch past that, just like that. And then we're going to repeat this step with all 4 corners. Okay, here's where we take a departure from the traditional construction. We are going to take, and this might look crazy, but this is why we did the side seam. We are going to take each box corner, the lining and the outer piece, and we are going to stitch those together right on that stitching line that we did before. This is going to secure the lining to the outer piece, the outside of the zipper pouch, so it doesn't slip around. It makes it so nice and handy. And we're going to do the same with the other side. And now it's getting really bunchy, but you'll be so glad you did this. Okay, so now I want to find that side opening in my lining, which is right here. And I am going to reach through, and I'm just going to try grabbing pieces and turning this whole thing right side out. Just slow and easy. And there we go. So let's just stick our hands in there and look at that. And that lining is secure in place. So now all I need to do is I'm going to turn this wrong side out, and I am going to stitch this opening shut, and you can do this by machine or by hand. Just make sure you tuck those raw edges under. And I'm going to do this by machine because I do not care if I see those stitches. I won't even be looking in there to see it. So I'm just going to go over this by machine. Okay, so I'm going to trim the extra thread, turn that right side out. And make sure these zipper tabs are turned right side out. So you'll see with that zipper tab now, it's nice, it lays the zipper nice and flat. So we get that nice aesthetic. So what I like to do, look how wrinkly that is. I'm going to run an iron over this, let it look nice and clean, and then it will be ready for gifting or to use. And there is our zipper pouch. Look at that, nice flat bottom so it will stand up. I like to use this size for holding all of my clips. So you can see this one just stands up really nice. It's right by my machine, holds my clips, anything like that. Or if you want to throw cosmetics or throw it in your purse with some chapstick and other things, that's great. This is just such a great size. I think this is my favorite size. So please share your Modern Mountain zipper pouches with me on Instagram. Share a picture and tag me at Bayhill Studios. And if you like this video, remember to like and subscribe.